Hello everyone. I would like to just get started with the review today. Feel free to see the previous videos, for example, yesterday's videos for a little bit of background on why I'm doing this and everything. But today, let's just jump into the review. There are 10 highlights like every day, and let's get started. So, the first one by a book called Don't Overthink It. Simple abundance is a frame of mind, not something you can buy. That feeling of plenty doesn't even have to carry a price tag. It can be a time out during the day to read a novel, or sit and relax on the porch with a cup of tea, or stop to notice your neighbor's flowers. What if what a gift it is to give ourselves permission to enjoy these little moments. Now this quote, I think it's kind of very obvious. There is not much need for the context. The book is about kind of not giving into our the feeling that okay, no, I mean, okay, is this good, is this, am I doing enough, or am I doing the right thing? And I mean, okay, it's okay to think those things, but we usually end up thinking a lot, and we usually end up overthinking stuff, and use that as an excuse to not even start, or not even enjoy the world around us. And I think this quote is kind of very straight to the point towards that. Um, the simple abundance being just a frame of mind. It's not you don't have to wait. You don't have to think about, okay, oh, I need this to enjoy this, or I need this something else to enjoy something else. It's just a frame of mind. And it could be as simple as taking out some time in the day to read a novel, or to read reviews like these. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, this is from Mind for Numbers. Extremely smart people are more likely than people of normal intelligence to procrastinate because it always worked when they were growing up, which means they are less likely to learn certain critical life skills early on. Right, and so this is, it's kind of like, it's a little long, the context over here. But the point is, I'll try to keep it quick. The point is that, kids who were, kind of brilliant at academic subjects, things like mathematics and sciences, um, it's often, we find those kids are usually aloof, not exactly social. They have a different behavioral pattern than what is considered normal. And that's exactly what the author means, when they say the people of normal intelligence, because these kids, the cultural norms being what they are, they were kind of held back. They were forced to held back, forced to held back. Sorry, they were forced to hold back. So for example, when it came, for the moment to shine, under social pressure, they would not, they would keep quiet rather than saying what they know. And I can relate to that. I mean, I know many people who relate to that. So this sometimes leads to this feeling of procrastination, because it worked when they were growing up, like, to survive in the society like it is today. That is what was needed. And these kids became aloof. I mean, or they were considered aloof. I mean, I don't think that they were aloof, but they were considered aloof because of these behaviors which were kind of forced upon them by social norms. And yeah, this kind of stayed with them, as they grew up. So procrastination, I think I mentioned earlier as well, procrastination is not about laziness. It's about a lack of clarity, or it's about a lack of certainty that, okay, is this something I should do, which is what this highlight is pointing out. Let's move on. Everyday chaos. Machine learning thereby undoes a founding idea of Western civilization, the agreement that the human mind is uniquely attuned to the truth of universe. um yeah, so this book, like I said, it's kind of a philosophical sorry, it's a philosophical work on machine learning, artificial intelligence in general. And the point the author is making over here, to the best of my memory, is that, we kind of give this importance to our minds, that okay, yeah, I mean, minds are this um magical place, or like special places which somehow understand the world like nothing else can. And or at least nothing else machinistic can, but what machine learning has shown us, I know, by the way it works, is that reducing certain things, like, yeah, large amounts of data, but since computers can process large amounts of data with ease, we are being shown that, okay, things that we thought were uh, things that appeared to be creative were actually, could be reduced, based on large amounts of data. It could be reduced to a complex neural network. And yeah, like that's what the highlight refers to. It under the founding idea of Western civilization, that human mind is uniquely attuned to the truth of the universe. It is not uniquely attuned. It can be replicated to certain extent by neural networks. I mean, of course, it's debatable. We are not anywhere near that what we call as AGI, artificial general intelligence. We are nowhere near that. And of course, it's debatable that if we'll ever reach some state like that. But even then, even the level of capabilities that we see with machine learning today, things like stable diffusion and OpenAI and GPT-3 and everything. It's kind of miraculous. It's kind of magical that, okay, the neural networks have come so far in such a short period of time. Let's move on. Okay, this is from Get It Done. This leads me to another unintended consequence of incentives. They might obscure the impact of an action. Crime still causes harm even if no one is watching. And yet, because our society establishes negative incentives for committing crimes, we might feel that it's okay to commit one if we can't get caught. Yeah, this is like a weird thing. There was this whole chapter about what how incentives affect different behaviors, both positive and negative incentives, and a lot of eye-opening moments for me over there. And this is also kind of weird, but I think I can relate to it at least. That because there is a negative incentive, we are kind of prompted to take that action if we can avoid that negative incentive. So it kind of becomes, uh, I mean, crime will still cause harm. We understand it causes harm, but if there is like a small crime, like let's say littering, you know and if we know that nobody's going to see that, we might feel that it's okay to get away with it. We might feel it's okay to litter, because if nobody's seeing this, there's no negative consequence for you, right? And it's a really weird thing, but if you think about it, that because there is this negative incentive, there is this punishment involved. And there is and if you know that, okay, you can avoid this punishment through some means, you'll take that because it's a negative incentive. You don't want that. And like your thought has shifted um, from the core, from the crux, that, okay, it is wrong to litter. It has shifted from that to avoiding the incentive, the negative incentive. It's it's difficult to explain, I think, in a short space of time. The chapter is definitely quite illuminating, and it is quite complicated to understand because there are so many facets. It's This book is kind of difficult to read. I mean, it's a great read, but it's difficult. So yeah, consider reading this if you're really interested in this concepts of incentives and motivation. Okay, another quote from Mind for Numbers. Teacher-centered approaches, where the teacher is considered to be the one with the answers, may sometimes inadvertently foster a sense of helplessness about learning among students. Surprisingly, teacher evaluation systems may foster the same helplessness. These systems allow you to place the blame for failure on your teacher's inability to motivate or instruct. We kind of touched upon these earlier, and it's kind of like the difference between a teacher being in a group and being somebody who is learning along with students, or somebody who has answers ready with them. So it's like, whenever you're stuck, you ask a question and you get the answer and you move on. And we discussed earlier that, how it doesn't really help you in the long term, doing this. It doesn't help you as a student. You don't keep those, you don't keep those learnings with you for a long time, because our brains kind of, because it was so easy to get, it's kind of, okay, forget it. So the struggle is important. If you struggle learning something, there is a very good chance you'll remember that for a longer time. right? And there is this, I think I kind of mentioned this also in passing earlier, so that the teacher evaluation systems may foster the same helplessness. It allows you to place the blame for failure on your teacher's inability to motivate or instruct. Although, that's not what you want, because again, these effects happen over long term. um, we don't really know, if the teacher's methods are working. So I mean, on the surface it may seem that, okay, the teacher or the instructor can't really motivate properly or can't instruct because they're making it difficult for the student to learn. But in actuality, that is something that's going to help them remember that thing for longer. So yeah, it's been like a mix of various things we have been discussing over the past few days. Let's move on. Okay, what happened? Yeah. So 7.5 lessons about the brain. As neurons change conversation partners, a single neuron can take on different roles. For example, your ability to see so intimately tied to an area of the brain called the occipital cortex. The area is routinely called the visual cortex. However, neurons routinely carry information about hearing and touch. Right, and so one of the lessons, one of the like kind of the beginning lessons of this book is that brain is not neatly divided into sections. With, okay, this section is for vision, this section is for hearing, this section is for motor functions. Yeah, I mean, it kind of got divided like that, but neurons are incredibly plastic. Brain is incredibly plastic. There is this attribute of our brains called plasticity, which refers to the ability of our brains to change with the environment. Examples being that, for example, you let's say you temporarily lose the ability to see. The neurons that were involved in interpreting signals from your eyes, they will be diverted to other senses. That's why the feeling that, if somebody who has lost their sight, the other senses pick up. So that's the point this highlight is also making. That neuron, a single neuron, can take on different roles. So if there is this particular cortex, which is routinely called visual cortex, actually does a lot more. It carries information about hearing and touch as well, and that's true for many other sections of brain. There are certain areas of brain, I mean, as per my knowledge, I'm not really a neurologist, or I mean, I guess that's what they call who people who study brains. But yeah, it's I'm I'm not really an expert on this subject, but based on my understanding, that there are some areas which have a predominant function, but all of it is incredibly plastic. There is nothing like, okay, that for example, if somebody loses their sight, the visual cortex is useless now. It doesn't work like that. Brains don't work like that. Okay, let's move on. This is from the range. Those children identified as exceptional by the school turn out to be those children who distributed their effort more evenly across three instruments. The less skilled students tended to spend their time on the first instrument they picked up, as if they could not give up a perceived head start. So again, the book is all about, I mean, going broad with your skills, learning a variety of skills, so that you overall you're better learned, better, you're more versatile, you're more skilled at anything you do, really. And like, this refers to a study where they group people, like, students who focused on one particular instrument, compared to students who focused on multiple instruments. And it turned out there, uh, the children who were identified as exceptional were those who actually spent time over three instruments, compared to somebody who just focused on one instrument. And of course, there are a lot of other examples, not related to musical instruments, but there are other examples. I think, like, the book starts out with an example of Tiger Woods and forgetting who else. So Tiger Woods being the example of somebody who specializes, like, right from early childhood, specializes on golf, and grows up to be, great at golfing. But and the other example I'm forgetting, yeah, I can't remember. So yeah, that's the point. Let's move on. Okay, this is from Originals. Minority viewpoints are important, not because they tend to prevail, but because they stimulate divergent attention and thought, finds Berkeley psychologist Shalin Nemeth, one of the world's leading experts on group decisions. As a result, even when they are wrong, they contribute to the detection of novel solutions and decisions that, on balance, are qualitatively better. Um, a lot of the same thing which I just said, but from a different perspective. It's not just that um, diverse skill sets are valuable, but it's also diverse viewpoints are valuable, right? And not because they tend to prevail. I mean, of course, we know that diversity and inclusion has become a huge topic of a discussion nowadays. Um, it's not just because of that, but they are actually helpful. They are it's not diversity for diversity's sake. It's not diversity because just because it's the right thing to do. It's actually helpful. It actually helps everybody involved. It's a win-win-win situation. So the highlight over here is talking about that the minority viewpoints or the divergent viewpoints are important because they stimulate divergent attention and thought. And like we have seen in earlier highlights about range, the general discussion that we have had about having a variety of viewpoints and how it's generally helpful. It's the same theme that even when certain aspects of these are wrong, these can contribute viewpoints that lead us to a different solution, a solution that you may not never think of if you never had this diverse viewpoint to begin with. I think it's in the book Range, where they gave this example of Kepler, who tried to reduce everything to an analogy. And the benefit in doing that was that you would probably not find the solution to the problem you're working on directly, but once you reduce it to analogy, you find a different novel solution that you would never have thought of otherwise. So yeah, that's that. Let's move on. Okay, again from 7.5 lessons about the brain. After all, in everyday life, you do many things by choice, right? At least it seems that way. For example, you choose to open this book and read these words, but the brain is a predicting organ. It launches your next set of actions based on your past experience and current situation, and it does so outside of your awareness. In other words, your actions are under the control of your memory and your environment. Does this mean you have no free will? Who's responsible for your actions? And I think we had the highlight from this chapter a few days back about free will, but that was like later part of the chapter. This is the earlier part of the chapter. So yeah, it's this same discussion of if your brain can predict, if your brain can based on the environment and based on the memory, it can it can it knows what's the next thing it should do. Does this mean you have no free will? What does it even mean to have free will in that case? Who's responsible for your actions? I mean, are you not your brain? Yeah, so it's kind of a discussion. um I mean, kind of on a metaphysical level, right? So I mean, of course, the chapter goes on to make a point, like we saw in the previous highlight, that you know even if the prediction wins over, prediction, your brain is always predicting. It's not going to stop predicting. It's not going to stop taking certain actions before the how do I put this, it's going to react before the inputs are there. The brain is going to do that, and it helps you. It's there for a reason. But that doesn't mean you have no choice. It doesn't mean you have no free will. It's again the it's again up to you to kind of move into that space of where you put yourself in the environment where you have choice. Excuse me. I think this came up maybe on Thursday last week. So I'll try to find the video and link to it in the description. But yeah, I think that's about it. Excuse me. So the last one is from Getting Things Done. People think a lot, but most of the thinking is of a problem, project, or situation, not about it. If you actually did the suggested exercise, you will require to structure your thinking towards an outcome and an action. And that does not usually happen without a consciously focused effort. Reacting is automatic, but thinking is not. Okay, the exercise this highlight refers to is, so when you're faced with a project or a problem, don't write down that in your to-do list or in your planner. Excuse me. Don't write down that, okay, work on the project. No, that's the wrong thing to write. That doesn't help you. Instead, write down what's the first step that you need to do for the project. So that's the difference between thinking of a problem of a project and thinking about a project. So when you start thinking about a project, you start thinking about the action items. What is the first action? You don't even have to break the whole project down into a series of action items. It's just the first action item you're worried about. So when you're processing a certain project or processing a certain problem, write down the first step. Not just that, okay, I have this problem, solve the problem, but what is the first step that you would need to do in solving that problem? Write that down. And that is the exercise. And that is what forces you to structure your thinking towards an outcome, because now you're thinking of an action. So you have thought, okay, oh yeah, this is the outcome I want. This is how I'm going to solve the problem. So what is the first step towards that? And that's how you're thinking of an outcome. So yeah, it needs a consciously focused effort, but that is what is required of the system, getting things done, this system. So yeah, I think that's the last highlight. Let's see the bonus highlight today. How to use Readwise. Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to read that. Like I said, I've been using it for almost 2 years now. And that's the end of today's highlights. Well, I think I'm trying to keep this as short as possible. I mean, because it's easier to watch and it's easier for me to do this regularly. I don't know how long I've been talking for, so let's see, it's reasonable. And more than anything, I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, I'm certainly enjoying going through these highlights and reliving the books. So that's it. Have a good day, everyone.